Thank you for joining us. Marriage is often wonderful. Many people swear by it. But why is it that some people think the singles are struggling to find someone, to connect with them and keep them? I'm joined with Fateha Majid, founder of Biye Biye, a family matchmaking app. She's also writes for a newspaper in the love and relationship column. Birds of a feather flock together, opposites attract. What made you set up the app Fateha, and how can it help people find, connect, and keep the right partner for them?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So what's made me set up Biye Biye? I've always been quite fascinated by the science of love, attraction, and relationships. So in terms of my background's in psychology. It's kind of, psychology has kind of echoed through my life. I worked in mental health, worked with vulnerable families. And yeah, I've just been quite fascinated by personality and the different dimensions of that. So about in 2018, I did my research and I wanted to find out about the landscape of love within the Muslim community. And there were a few emerging themes which I wanted to kind of address. So the emerging themes was people find it really stressful to meet someone through family. It's an area of conflict. Another thing is families aren't connected with families of the same origin. And a lot of people feel quite disenchanted by finding love. So I wanted to create something which hasn't been done before. And it really kind of meets the needs of the Muslim community. And because of my background, I tried my very best to kind of embed that within the app. So there are aspects within the app which is around personality, what personality the individual is and what they're looking for, but also stuff around the individual's love map, so stuff around ambition and stresses. So I've tried my very best to kind of embed that, and also around love languages. So there's 5 different love languages, so I've got that within the app as well, because some people may want words of affirmation to feel loved, or they might like receiving gifts, and that makes them feel loved. So that's something which I've included within the app.
So it's interesting that you've included those things in, talking about personality, you're talking about the love language, but it's not part of our culture, within our community to actually show people or teach people how to select a marriage partner. And if you think about it, selecting a marriage partner is one of the is going to be one of the deciding factors, because marriage can either make you or break you.
Yes.
And it's going to be one of the deciding factors that's going to really decide the quality of your life, is the marriage you've chosen. So just talking about the theme of personality, do you think that it's really important for us to know our personality as well as the kind of personality trait of the other person, who would suit us and who wouldn't suit us, rather than some of these long checklists that people have?
Yeah. For sure, I definitely believe that you need to know what your personality is. So there are the big 5 personalities. So it's about figuring out which one you fall into. And there are certain tests which you can do. So there's a Myers-Briggs test, and there's a DISC test as well. So you can go online, check it out, go through the questionnaire, figure out who you are, and just really get insights into the different personalities. So when you come across someone, you're like, okay, you fall into introvert, you're an introvert rather than an extrovert, or you have a personality of openness where you like new experiences, or actually you seem a bit neurotic. So I think it's really important to figure that out. But I mean, there are other things which you can look for, and you should look for, and that's around the kind of screening dimensions. So there's the aspect of nature and there's nurture as well. So nature is, is connected to our genetics and the predisposition and inclinations which we get through genetics. And in terms of nurture, it's around environmental factors. So it's about kind of having a balance of both. And when you're looking into people, think about their personality, but also think about the environment they're from, and examples of what shows what the character is like in different personality aspects. So I would say the initial bit, when you come across someone, there are some initial kind of screening, and one of them is good character. So I think it's so important to find someone with good character. Do they have moral uprightness? Are they quite honest? Because if you come across someone who doesn't have a good character, that's really going to weaken the foundation of your marriage. It's just going to it's going to undermine it. So that's something which I would strongly advise. But also there's stuff like, so there's the quality of your own self-conception as well. So what I say to people is, you need to get yourself healthy first before you enter a marriage. And it's about giving yourself the love and having the attitude of self-giving rather than self-receiving. And it's about knowing who you are. And you can do that through really taking that time out to really reflect and, you know, what your personality is, what your likes and your dislikes are, what makes you feel good, and, you know, what your passions are. And just write a list of the things which really stimulate you and really make you feel good, and follow them. The worst thing a person can do is not follow their natural kind of inclination and passions. But that's the thing which will make you quite authentic. So before you get married, definitely focus on your own kind of emotional health, because that's so important before you enter a marriage. You can't go into it thinking, actually, this other person has to give to me. And that's when you have disappointment.
And that's a really important topic that you've touched on, which is really spending the time, investing the time in getting to know you. I think a lot of singles tend to, there's a lot of pressure around getting married, for sure. You know, people are feeling a lot of that pressure. Oh, you're at a certain age, you've got to get married. You've got to find yourself a partner. But the investment that you make in really understanding who you are, it is fundamental. It's going to set you up for the rest of your life. It's going to set you up for the relationship. It's interesting because when I work with my singles, they come to me because they say that they've exhausted everything else. They've tried everything else. They said they've tried all the apps, you know, they've tried all the online stuff. They've tried all the rishta aunties.
Yeah.
They just haven't met the right person, and they're thinking that maybe then this is something that they need to do, is do that little bit of investment and work on themselves. To because like you said, you were talking about nurture and nature, talking about character, and, you know, asking that key question of why do I do what I do? Why do I have this tick list? Why do I want a certain person this way? Be this way? And, you know, sometimes when I help my clients write their profiles, and you know, you go through profiles, and, you know, people say, oh, someone who must have, gosh, you know, great sense of humor. You know, I'm a family orientated person. I'm really adventurous. I'm chatty. I'm a good cook, or I'm compassionate, or I'm spontaneous. But really, how are they living that? What evidence is there behind that, rather than just that list of personality traits that you're ticking off?
And that list actually stems from the 1960s, 1970s. So TV programs were focused on things to kind of look out for, such as appearance, social status, whether that person makes me feel good, or whether they make me laugh. But that's at a superficial level. There's something which is far deeper, which we need to look into and really think about if we're going to decide on our life partner. Because, as you said before, it's like the biggest decision we're going to make, and it impacts on our lives in such, you know, profound ways. So
it's going to affect your mental health, it's going to affect your emotional health, it's going to affect your financial health, it's going to affect all of those things. So you know, to make that decision rightly.
So if you kind of look at what's happening right now, So yes, we're in a pandemic, but we know over the past 6 weeks, minimum 4,000 women in London have experienced domestic violence. So another thing which I can talk about is actually you need to think about the character which you're, looking to marry, and around like anger management. How are you going to know whether the person you're considering to get married to has anger issues or not? You need to spend the time to kind of get to know them, and it's about kind of reflecting on how we react to situations as well. So it's not just the other person. You have to kind of think about actually what are the situations where I felt quite angry and how did I deal with it? And the person on the receiving end, how did they deal with it as well? And what impact did it have? And how did I feel after it? So it's about kind of doing that kind of inner work and look at your own anger. And when people display anger, it's connected to pain as well. So we need to do that work, and then be able to, when we're looking for a partner, be able to see them in different situations, but also ask them really good questions to get the right answers. And if there are certain things which trigger them, then it's just like, actually, does this person have an anger issue? But I will also say it's not just, it's one part to look at the individual, but the key part is actually to look at the family. And this is why I set up Biye Biye, because the family is so important. It comes down to the nurture aspect. So when you get to know the family as well as the individual, there are certain things certain red flags which may come up, or they may not. It could be that actually you come across a family who seem quite nice and quite genuine, but then you may come across a family where actually the mum seems a bit tense, the dad seems a bit angry. That kind of explains how this man who I'm considering to, get married to, how he behaves. So it's so important to look at things from different angles. Your interaction with the person, but also their interaction with their family, but also wider society as well.
And you touched upon asking questions, and it's one of the I think the core key questions to really ask and the person that you're getting to know. You mentioned family, and you mentioned nurture, and you mentioned nature. And some of the questions that I find my singles are afraid to ask is questions like, how did your family deal with disagreements? How did your family anger? When you failed, what was the response that you got from your family? How did you feel? So really getting an understanding by asking those questions is really going to give you an insight into the person. And what I say is, if you're going to ask questions, don't just take the first answer and sort of like, oh my gosh, I've got the response. Ask the question 3 times in three different ways. And most people avoid having an argument early stages of getting to know someone because they don't want to they don't want to unsettle the relationship. But that's so key to have an argument, because it will really give you an understanding of how you resolve your differences. And whether you are able to resolve your differences. And also looking at that passive aggressive, within yourself, how did you deal with disagreements within your family? How was anger expressed within your family? And then all the other emotions as well: sadness, happiness, excitement. How are they all experienced as an individual for yourself, and how are they experienced by the people around you, and how are they expressed? And also really finding out what's your mum and dad's relationship like.
Yes. Yeah,
it's really core sort of personality identifying questions as well. And I think what happens is that we've got to be very careful that we don't confuse personality with character.
Yes.
Because I'll give you an example. I had a client who had got married, and when she came to me, she was going through difficulties in terms of whether they were considering whether to divorce or not. And she said that when I first met my partner, he was like the soul of the party. He was very, and he wanted to, you know, go out here, go out there. And once we got married, he became an introvert. He no wanted to, you know, go out and be the soul of the party.
Yeah.
And when we dug deep, it was because he presented himself to her as he thought she wanted to see him.
That's why it's good to see an individual in different situations. So if you are spending a lot of time with this person in a group setting, that's the only side you'll see. It's best to see them around family. It's best to see them under stressful situations. It's best to I don't know, plan something where you work as a team and just see how they kind of react and behave as well. So I think that's also quite important.
Well, there was some research done by John Gottman, a psychologist and relationship researcher, and you've probably heard of his Love Lab.
Yeah.
he when he did his research, he came up with, like, you know, what would constitute a happy marriage, what would sustain a happy marriage. And the key fundamental that he found was that where couples shared the power.
Yes.
And that's a key indicator. You know, you mentioned teamwork, and again, really trying to understand what the other person thinks about sharing the power.
Yes.
Because, again, nurture, you know, within the individual's family, who has the power? Is it mom? Is it dad?
Is it shared? Yes.
And then also for yourself as well. Because this is really important that you understand for yourself as well, because sometimes what we lead on is, if we experience a marriage, like parents' marriage or any other relationship, if we experience certain things and we promised ourselves, you know what, when I get married, I'm not having X, Y, and Z in my relationship, because we didn't like experiencing it as we were growing up.
Yeah.
And that's the core work to do, because you don't want something, the more you attract it.
Yes. Yes.
With familiarity, human beings like familiarity.
I mean, what I also kind of advise to people I speak with is just get yourself a journal and just write down all the things you want in a person, and just release, and really take that time to think about why, and imagine what kind of life you'll have with that person, and just kind of release that to the universe. And it's almost, it's like a dua which you're making. So I would say I think it's definitely worth focusing on what you want rather than what you don't want, because you end up just attracting it all the time. So, and there's patterns, you see it, like, actually, you know, if I kind of reflect in a hypothetical situation, if I kind of reflect on like the 10 guys in the past, they may have like similar personalities, because that's something which I would have thought that, you know, this is what I don't want. I'm not saying that's the case for me, but I think it's really important to focus on what you really want, otherwise you will attract it. And that's why things keep coming up and certain characters keep coming up, because you're attracting it, because you're releasing that energy, I would say.
And I think, you know, I need to be honest and upfront and really say it as it is. If you again, the common denominator in the experience is yourself.
Yes.
So therefore, stepping back and thinking, what am I contributing to this? Because, like, we have this tendency, and this is, men and women do this. Is like, the women will say, oh, there's no decent guys out there, you know, because they're all X, Y, Z, and the men will say, you know, there's no decent women out there because they're all X, Y, Z. So really, what, you know, I'm really tuning into yourself. And, you know, it's interesting when I work with my couples, because with my singles, and they'll say to me, oh, Wajeeha, I'm speaking to so and so, and I'm sure that they've been working with you as well, because of certain things that they're saying. So once you start really doing that, you know, that self-development, that self-reflection, that working on you know, your relational skills. Because what you'll find is, if you're struggling in relationship, in like sort of in finding an intimate relationship, how are your other relationships?
Like
playing out? and doing that self-reflective work, because what you'll find, again, some common patterns.
Yeah.
Soul searching and honesty.
And I mean, I've spoken to a lot of women and men as well. And quite a lot of the women, what I've noticed is some really great, amazing, stunning women, really educated, really passionate, have got so much to give. And they tend to go for men who aren't suitable for them, like the bad boys. And I've asked them, like, you know, what is it that attracts you to this person? And they say that, oh, it's that excitement. He makes me feel like this whenever I kind of see him. And it's that physiological response which they get from meeting this new person who makes them feel like this. But it's actually, what I kind of want to say is actually, it's your instincts telling you to go the other way. You shouldn't focus on this initial meeting where they make you feel all these strong, powerful feelings, because you haven't taken that time to get to know this person. It's at such surface level. So when you feel that, take a step back and be like, actually, I need to get to know this person more, and see, you know, be in tune to who you are and what you feel, but also think, actually, it could be my instincts telling me to run. I mean, like from my experience in my younger self, and I learned quite quickly, quite early on, whenever I've come across someone who's made me feel like that, and I've been like, actually, I've stepped back and I've thought, they seem to be quite aggressive in their approach, and they interact like this with that person, and they speak in a really harsh manner. But these aren't characteristics and personality traits I want in a person. So I learned quite early through reflection, through each person I would meet, that actually they don't have what I need and what I want. But yes, they make me feel like that, but actually it's me stepping into a dangerous zone. So let me protect myself and step away. So what I'm just saying is, you know, just be mindful that you can come across these really attractive people and they will make you feel a certain way, but don't base, you know, your whole relationship and what follows based on that initial first impression or first reaction to a person.
Well, most people fall in love with the idea of the relationship, not necessarily the person. So they meet someone and then they start conjuring up, you know, ideas in their head of how the relationship is going to be, not necessarily with the person. And that kind of leads us really well onto compatibility and chemistry.
Yes.
You know, they're both interchangeable terms that we use. But they're actually quite different. You know, and what you described was chemistry. You know, and we need to be careful, because that kind of chemistry that you're describing, like you said, can be quite dangerous. And it's quite intense in the beginning and give you all that euphoria and give you the endorphins and the serotonians, and it makes you feel good and you can't sleep at night because you're thinking about that person. But actually, when you strip that back, what is the compatibility for that person? And again, compatibility comes back to values.
Core values.
You know, and I think just as we look out for the red flags, looking out for the green flags. Flags as well, but knowing what your red flags are, knowing what your green flags are, you know, how this person treats you and makes you feel. And when you feel unsafe with someone, you've got to honor that red flag. And that's one of the key questions that I get people to ask after they've done a meeting. Away from that meeting, is how safe did I feel in this person's company? In these people's, if you're meeting the family, how safe did I feel in that situation?
And I would say there's another kind of character to also avoid. So someone who's quite harsh, quite critical, quite hard, and they just suck out your energy. So someone like that you can never please. And I would say, you know, when you come across an individual like that, initially it may feel that actually they're challenging me. I'm finding this quite exciting, but actually it's likely they're going to be like that throughout the relationship and marriage, and it's my way or the highway. So it's just it's about kind of reflecting on things and the interactions which you have with an individual, and think about long term. You want to be able to see different sides of the person in different situations, the good, bad, and ugly, as we kind of you mentioned in the last session. But yeah, I think it's so important to see different sides, and not just focus on one.
Yeah, but also how real can you be?
Yeah.
How real can you be in that relationship? So if, for instance, like you said, you know, someone who's really pushy and someone who, you know, who says, oh no, it has to be this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you push back, what kind of reaction will you get?
Yeah.
And is that reaction one that helps you to grow?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like for instance, I don't know, no, you've been offered a job, for example, and you speak to the person and you say, oh my gosh, I've been offered this job, and they say to you, well, but this job requires me to travel for work, you know, and that person says to you, well, I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that you should be traveling. Yeah.
Yes.
How do you respond to that?
Yeah.
You know, are you able to push back on that and say, well, I don't understand why you feel it's inappropriate?
Yeah.
That healthy dialogue and that healthy conversation, and it's not one-sided, where you can both see each other's point of view and agree a common a way forward that gives you that growth rather than disempowers you.
Yeah.
So thank you. We've had quite a useful conversation. I hope people are finding this useful. So just to kind of round up our conversation today. In terms of top tips, what would you like to share with people when it comes to searching for their marriage partner?
Top tip would be know yourself, get yourself healthy before you look into getting married, and be authentic and come from a place of self-giving. Also, when you're looking for someone and for it to be a kind of great relationship, similarities are quite important. As I said, birds of a feather flock together, and it's important to be very clear of your must-haves and non-negotiables. So I think that's quite important. But also, it's so important to know the whole family and get insights into the family, because from that you can see how his characters can develop and his personality develop. So that's the nurture aspect. So get to know his parents, get to know more about their relationships, because he may potentially, or she may potentially model their behavior as well. So that's quite important. So I think those are my tips.
No, fantastic tips, and I really like you know, the final tip, really core. You know, something that I really focus on when I work with my singles is around negative core character values. And those negative core character values, where did they come from? Nurture, nature, nurture. We will have learned behavior.
Yes.
You know, we can change. There's you know, there's no doubt, you know, we can change, but we have to want to change for ourselves. Rather than our partner wanting us to change. You have to want to change for yourself. So having an understanding of how the family dynamics are is really important. What's the structure? What's the hierarchy within the family? You know, you know, how do men conduct themselves? How do women conduct themselves? You know, the roles and responsibilities within a household. And again, asking those core key questions.
And also, when you get married, what does married life look like? Will you be moving in with your in-laws? Will you be living separately? And what are the expectations there as well? So I think it's important to have those discussions. Could it be that the plan is because of economical reasons, that you may live with your in-laws for about 2 years whilst you save up, and then you move out and then you have your own space? Or whether you have your own space from the very beginning, but you have a strong relationship with his family, and he has a strong relationship with your family. Because it's about marriages when two families come together, and it's so important that you know the you're clear about your own family's personality, but also the personality of the family you're going to marry into, because you will be connected to that family through your children. So you can't, I mean, I disagree with people who say, oh, I'm just going to get married to the individual, as long as he's amazing or she's amazing. It doesn't matter what the family is about. It does matter, because it could either make your life a living hell, or it can be very blissful. So you need to kind of weigh, yeah.
Says, you don't marry the individual, you also marry the family as well.
Yeah.
So having that insight. So in terms of bringing the session to the end, in terms of the top tips that I would share, I would really say to people, when you're speaking to someone, be honest in your conversation. Don't be, pay attention to your behavior, pay attention to their behavior. Are you being self-focused, or are you being relationally focused? Which is the person being relationally focused, or is he being self-focused? And then, sort of really asking each other, do you share the same core values? Are you able to negotiate your differences, and how do you negotiate your differences? And yeah, we have the cliches of opposites attract, similar people attract similar people. We have there's all those cliches, but are you enough alike that your differences aren't exhausted?
Yeah.
Really paying attention to compatibility and chemistry. Everyone's looking for chemistry. People say, oh, when I have that spark, I'll know. But it's not necessarily about the spark as such. The spark is important, don't get me wrong, but it's compatibility, your compatibility, your values, your is your relationship going to grow? Is your partner going to encourage you to grow? Are you going to encourage your partner to grow? Do you share the same sort of life mission as each other? And on that, it's been lovely speaking to you. I'm sure we'll be doing this again soon. If you're watching this and you've got any questions,